Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to dive into something new and different that we haven't done before on this show, but I hope it really helps you see how the astrological energies have played out for you this year. We're going to review the energies of transiting Jupiter, Saturn, and Chiron today and look at what has shown up for you in 2022 based on these transiting energies. So this will be more like an exercise that we do together. So you're invited to take a look at your chart, or perhaps you already know your chart very well and you can go off of memory. But what we're going to discuss is how the transiting planets have worked with you this year. And it's often in hindsight that we see things in a new way, in a different way. And this could be a wonderful way to understand what has been unfolding for you throughout the year and to make it more personal, essentially to make more connections in your own astrology chart and to bring the energies alive. So we're going to do a 2022 astrological review discussing the energies of transiting Jupiter, Saturn, and Chiron. And then next Monday, we will do the same for transiting Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So we're going to start by looking at transiting Jupiter throughout 2022 as Jupiter began this year at 0 degrees of Pisces. So back in January, Jupiter had just entered Pisces actually in December of 2021 and has moved through all 30 degrees of Pisces. Then in May, entered Aries and traveled to nearly 9 degrees of Aries until the end of July, where it stationed retrograde. So in your astrology chart, the first thing you'd want to identify is where you have 0 degrees of Pisces, as this is where Jupiter traveled through and really amplified energies in your chart and in your life. Jupiter is expansion, ease, generosity, abundance. Jupiter is where we can learn things or move through situations with ease and grace. And Jupiter in Pisces also signaled that we were deeply connecting to more of those Pisces energies within us, our own spiritual growth and spiritual gifts in this lifetime, connecting with divine timing and how things are happening even when we can't see it, even when we're unaware of it. So as this transiting Jupiter in Pisces moved through your chart, it would have brought up things for you to trust and to look at where you can allow spirit to come in, to guide you, to assist you. The energies of Jupiter in Pisces were especially strong this year because also in April, we had the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction at 24 degrees of Pisces. So for the first 5 months of this year, very strong Pisces influence. So if you have planets or points in Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, any of the water signs, this Jupiter in Pisces was working with you in a beneficial way to support you in an area of growth or expansion, to also assist you in understanding what you're ready to let go of, what was of assistance to you on your path, but you can bless it on its way. You can have gratitude for it, allow it to move forward or to transmute into another energy, and then continue to trust the ongoing creative process we have with the universe. So any of your planets or points in the water signs would have been greatly assisted by this Jupiter in Pisces, and it might be interesting to look back and see what did show up for you? What did transpire? What came through that could have been very unexpected simply because of that Pisces energy, which is nebulous and hard to get a grasp on. But Pisces connects us to the timeline that allows us to keep having faith, to trust that every new ending has a new beginning, that everything is an ongoing cycle of energy. And you could have felt too that your own spiritual gifts, psychic abilities, intuitive messages were amplified in the beginning half of this year. Then Jupiter moved into Aries. So if you have any planets or points between 0 and 9 degrees of Aries, or 0 and 9 degrees of the fire signs, which are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, then as Jupiter moved into Aries, there was a desire for movement, make something happen, let's go, put it into action. The fire signs support us in trusting our motivation, trusting what we're inspired to do. And this would have been a strong energy of something new coming out or coming forward. This would have been something that felt motivating, also something that would have lifted you up to try something new. Because as any planet moves into Aries, it's where we also have to have the courage to do something new or different, to go off on a new path or a new adventure, to trust our gut. And that could have been something that you were working with this year as this Jupiter moved into Aries, and would have felt like something was ready to come out or come forward. And it could have been something new that required you to have more trust in yourself, to trust what was calling to you, to trust what was beginning to open up in you. Then as Jupiter stationed retrograde at the end of July, specifically on July 28th, and then retrograded backwards throughout that first decan of Aries and then re-entered Pisces, we revisited something significant that we have spiritual support in letting go. Something that even relates to a 12-year cycle, since that's how Jupiter moves through the zodiac. So as Jupiter re-entered Pisces and went to 28 and 29 degrees of the very last sign of the zodiac, working with the very last degrees of the zodiac, there was a return to the understandings you've perhaps been feeling and sensing. And now Jupiter really wants to help you close it out, end it, complete it. And this is something to feel good about. This is something that your higher self is cheering you on. Your soul is guiding you through this cycle to understand what you have mastered, what you have truly come to understand that is true for you, but you don't need ongoing lessons in this area of your life. And that's something to keep in mind with Jupiter, is that because it's about growth and expansion, it brings up things that we need to move through so we can gain wisdom. We can have the experience, learn from the experience, take the best with us, and then allow everything else to close out and fall away gracefully, especially in Pisces. So there is an energy here that with transiting Jupiter, you could have felt that urge to get things going, to get it started. And then there was a retraction of the energy, a pullback. And this is part of the spiritual guidance of this year, is that if we're really going to start something new, a new chapter, a new direction, a new adventure in our lives and in ourselves, it's important to make sure that we are moving forward with full acceptance of who we are now, that we're in alignment with what we've learned. We're not repeating a cycle. We're not regressing back to previous versions of ourselves. This is a time for newness and movement. And it's almost like we got this spiritual assist to check in. What was the lesson here? Or what was the energy that you were moving through that needed to be completed so that you could have a new start that's especially pure, that's especially clean and clear and in deep alignment with who you are now? And that should feel like it's sparkly and fresh and new, because this energy is meant to initiate a whole new 12-year cycle. And we've been through such big energies in recent years and in the past 10 years that what we are really honoring is more of a truth of who we are. And I'm seeing this energy really go down to the root chakra. And it's interesting because the Jupiter in Aries will connect to that root chakra energy, but Jupiter in Pisces connects to the crown chakra. So it feels like there is some kind of surge of energy moving between that crown chakra and that root chakra that feels very cleansing, that makes us more aware of a truth, of something within ourselves that deeply resonates with what we're identifying with now And we're meant to have a stable, strong foundation in order to move forward with it. So in your chart, you would also be looking at where you've had transiting Jupiter in Aries, moving from 0 to 9 degrees, and then back, all the way back to 28 degrees of Pisces, in order to prepare you for the new starts that are really coming in the end of December and into January 2023 and beyond. So even if you felt like something didn't quite get off the ground and you had to come back and rework it, or do some more healing work around it, some more internal release work, that's all right on time. So understand that's part of the grace of the universe. That's part of the willingness to trust a process and to move through the energies. That even if something didn't fully take off and go, there's this retraction of energy back that the universe is saying, don't worry about it. If it's really yours, if it has your name on it, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere because it has your energy signature on it. So if you have felt that delay and that sense of even a disappointment, it could be that something has to be reconfigured. It's needed to be in higher alignment. And then when we move forward into the new year, there'll be a sense of things really clicking and sticking. And I even feel like that's when the new starts really come through and take off. So we definitely have had a year with this transiting Jupiter of showing us what needed to be complete, spiritually complete, energetically complete. And again, it relates to the past 12 years, okay? So we've been ending a 12-year journey and preparing to embark on a new one. And yet this Jupiter is showing you what those lessons have been, what those energies are about, and where you can continue to trust your own soul growth, where you can continue to really be in the power of your co-creation abilities with the universe, and to know that things are opening up. There is an opening again as Jupiter re-enters Aries, which will happen on December 20th, and Jupiter will stay in Aries into May of 2023. So again, it might be beneficial to look at what transiting Jupiter has opened up for you. Maybe you've seen things in a higher vantage point from a new perspective. Maybe you gained clarity on some themes you've been moving through. Jupiter also relates to our karmic rewards, to our karmic abundance, to energies in other lifetimes and timelines that we have the ability to call in and work with. So you could have felt beautifully supported as well through these Jupiter energies. So to review, Jupiter would have been beautifully supported for the planets or points you have in the water signs, and also the planets or points you have in the fire signs. Now we're going to move on to looking at the energies of transiting Saturn this year, as transiting Saturn has had an ongoing journey that actually originated back in 2021. But this year, in January 2022, Saturn started the year at 11 degrees of Aquarius and traveled all the way to 25 degrees of Aquarius in June. And it would have been actually June 5th that Saturn stationed retrograde. So between 11 and 25 degrees of Aquarius in your chart is where Saturn has been moving through and really bringing your attention to important matters. Saturn takes about 30 years to move through the full zodiac. So when Saturn covers turf in your chart, it's really about tuning in to what is important, what you're responsible for, what you need to manage and take care of, because Saturn won't be back here for another 30 years. And so as Saturn is moving through Aquarius, there are things that we are determining are important and that we need to keep going, we need to stay committed to. And we're also understanding what is no longer necessary, what's not essential, what doesn't have a place or isn't a priority going forward. Now, when Saturn moves through a house in your chart, and because we're looking at 11 to 25 degrees of Aquarius. It's possible that Saturn is moving through 2 houses in your chart. But wherever it might be, this is where there is time required. You have to do the work. You have to focus here. There's things that are important that you need to follow through on and understand the implications or the consequences. Saturn is where we mature. And sometimes that maturity happens through challenges. Sometimes there's these hard knocks that Saturn delivers, or there's things that we have to do on our own, and you could feel unsupported. So take a look at where Saturn has been in your chart throughout 2022, because this is showing you where ultimately you're getting stronger. You're developing more of your capabilities in this particular house or houses in your chart, but it's through a slow, steady process. It's by seeking out the information or guidance to assist you. Saturn in Aquarius is where we're also assessing not only what we know, but who we know. Because Aquarius is about the people we interact with, the people who are around that maybe you know casually, they are friends, they are in your network, they are in your social circle, and maybe they're not a close contact or a close friend, but they're certainly an energy that you feel. And as Saturn moves through this sign, there's things that we are assessing and understanding about these connections. Are these real friends? Do we have things in common going forward? Do they understand my unique path? Do I understand their unique path? Because Aquarius will also highlight our differences, but our differences are meant to be a strength. It's the strength of diversity. It's the strength of complexities and how we are complex individuals. And we have multiple energies, multiple facets of expression, and there's different ways we connect with people. So, of course, you're going to have certain connections with your coworkers, and then perhaps a different type of connection with a friend or with somebody you know online or however you've met them. But this is the energy of really honing in on what you need in connections and with people in your life. And also looking at what responsibility you're holding to them. So if you're feeling that you're responsible for a group of people, or that everything is resting on your shoulders or on your back, there could be some bigger decisions you've been moving through this year around what you do want to be responsible for, what you do want to take care of, and what you don't. And so this could be a time when you are understanding your own life priorities, what you have energy for and what you don't. Now, Saturn is a decision maker. Saturn is also a timekeeper. It's the energy of we only have so much time on the planet. So what do you want to do with your time? And not just in the bigger perspective of your life, but on a daily basis. What matters to you every day? What are you building? What is driving you forward? What are your commitments that you want to see through because it's part of where you're creating the life that's right for you? Saturn asks the bigger, more serious questions, and then Saturn requires us to do something about it. So for all the ways that Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, provides ease and grace and things showing up and coming through and just feeling like there's an effortlessness in the universe, Saturn brings us back down to earth and says, yeah, that's all good and great, but now you've got to show up for work and you can't be late and you need to get some things done by lunchtime. And there's other things you need to take care of in the afternoon. So this is where Saturn shows up and shows us the structure of our day, the structure of our week, and ultimately that's what creates our life. So we're checking in here with how we're using our energy regularly and then determining, is this the right trajectory for me? Is this really what I want and what I'm committed to? And if you're feeling a yes, chances are it connects to your authentic energy. It connects to what you've learned about yourself, what you've come to understand about who you are and who you are not. And you could have some very interesting insights here into previous versions of yourself, into things that you would have done or you used to do. And throughout time, maturity, life experiences, you have evolved and grown, and Saturn reflects that. So transiting Saturn in Aquarius has moved from 11 to 25 degrees in your chart, and Saturn will complete the year back at 22 degrees of Aquarius. Now, also this year, we had the fourth square with Saturn in Aquarius to Uranus in Taurus, and that happened in October. And that would have been something destabilizing to Saturn. There would have been a sense of what you're building or working on or committed to is on shaky ground, or some things collapsed, they didn't come through, they fell off. And it could have been this sense of, well, what's this all been about? Why have I been working so hard to have this thing not follow through, or to have it fall down and go boom? And these were energies that were stronger in 2021 when we had Saturn in Aquarius as well, squaring Uranus in Taurus 3 times. So it could have felt like there were things you were gathering the pieces on this year. You were like, okay, this didn't stick last year. This fell apart. This really wasn't what I wanted to build or do. And I'm going to do it a little differently this year. So then in 2022, there were things that we had to see through. We had to stay the course. We had to keep working away on it. Saturn wants to see your effort. It's sort of like having a test, like a math test. And then Saturn says, show me your work, show me your calculations and your equations, show me how you arrived at this answer. So throughout 2022, we had to do more work and look at what we really wanted to see through. And then we had a shake the ground experience in October, where again, Saturn was tested. And it was a test in strength, almost like testing you around, well, how strong do I feel about this now? What is really solid within me? What can stay the course? So that square from Uranus in October would have been something that could have been an opportunity to check in again. Check in again and make sure that you are really staying the course for the long term, for that Aquarius vision, for what you want your future to be about, and for where you are being very responsible with your energy. I also feel like this Saturn in Aquarius, it relates to soul groups, soul tribes, soul family, the people that we've known in other lifetimes and through other relations. It's like there's this understanding of how we're connected to so many people, but Saturn is about focus. Don't get distracted. And you could have gotten distracted this year, especially with that Uranus squaring Saturn. So there could have been some shocks and surprises. But now as we end 2022, Saturn is back in the third decan of Aquarius, and it stays direct here until it enters Pisces in March. So we're going to have the first few months of 2023 with Saturn finishing up its time in Aquarius. And I feel like there's things that we are stronger about, that even though there have been tests, challenges, trials, probably even a sense of your energy sinking, which Saturn can do, it can make us feel defeated. You can just feel like, what's the point of all this? I'm doing all this work, I'm putting in all this effort, and I don't have much to show for it. But part of Saturn is knowing that we don't always see the results in the moment or in the day. There can be a longer term process where maybe you really don't see the payoff until next year or later in the decade. So the Saturn effort is interesting because sometimes the rewards can show up in what feels like a timely manner. And other times Saturn can feel like you're just working away, applying effort, getting things done, but it feels like you're on a hamster wheel. Now, keep in mind that Saturn in Aquarius is helping us rebuild what was ultimately destroyed when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in 2020. So Saturn, over the past few years, has been reminding us to take the energy forward. And Aquarius is rebellious. It's the revolutionary energy. It's disruptive. So we've probably felt that in our own energy of, I'm feeling this desire for change. I'm feeling like I really want something to break free, break loose. And yet in Saturn, we can feel a bit caged or restrained by what we have to do, what we have to take care of. So there's always a built-in responsibility here. And it's looking at, how do you manage that responsibility? How do you show up and honor what is important, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment or it doesn't seem to have any reward today? If you have planets or points between 11 and 25 degrees in the air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Saturn has been assisting you in what you are building, in how you are growing, and how you are maturing. So this would have been a trine to the planets in Gemini or Libra between 11 and 25 degrees. And that would have been very supportive. Now, if you have planets or points in Aquarius between 11 and 25 degrees, then the energy would have felt different, because that conjunction from Saturn can feel like an elephant is sitting on you, like you have to take care of this, but it isn't a fast process. It could also be a very important life check-in because of how slowly Saturn moves. Again, it takes 28 to 30 years for Saturn to move around the full zodiac wheel. So Saturn is in Aquarius for the first time since the early mid-90s, and it's really bringing your attention to what is not working in this part of your life and to refocus on what will work or what can work. So the planets in Aquarius have really been feeling the Saturn influence. It can feel heavy, tight, frustrating. Again, it can also feel like you have to do it on your own, and you have to keep showing up in a way that maybe gets exhausting over time. But with Saturn in Aquarius, which is a sign it co-rules, there's things that are being figured out. And it could be that you've been waiting for that mental vision to click. You've been waiting for some kind of answer to be downloaded, especially into your third eye. And that is something that Aquarius rules, is that third eye chakra. And with Saturn there, you want to make sure it's not blocked, or that it hasn't been blocked, but that what comes in, you can take seriously, you can build it, you can make it happen, make it work, as long as it's true for you and reflects and connects to your genuine, authentic frequency. So the Saturn energies this year have hopefully shown you more insights into where you're going next, even though you could have had to backtrack, rework, reconfigure, throw some things out, let some things go. And this can be hard because Saturn really shows us what we're made of. It really does. It pushes us. It pushes us in to new parts of our energy and new parts of ourselves that maybe we haven't been in contact with, but it's time. It's time to either learn the lesson, do the work, mature, make a new commitment, show up, be more responsible, all these keywords. But I feel like the energy here is a responsibility to your soul growth, a responsibility to your soul mission, a responsibility to your own individual frequency. And so you could have felt like things that aren't meant for you, that aren't a part of your future, have to go, have to leave. There's no place, there's no room, the puzzle piece doesn't fit anymore. And that's always a part of Saturn, is that we have to make life decisions, life choices, and depending on where we make those choices from is how the energy then plays out. It's how the energy then kind of moves forward, or where we have consequences or other things that show up. And I don't mean consequences like in a negative thing, like, oh, you've been bad, here's your consequences. I mean the whole law of cause and effect, and how what we choose and what we do is always going to have some kind of effect in the universe. And Saturn has been holding us to a particular standard as well. This energy would have been hard or more difficult for any planets or points between 11 and 25 degrees of the fixed signs. The fixed signs being Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And if you have any planets or points there, then the Saturn was testing you, challenging you, perhaps feeling overwhelming and even difficult at times. But in the cosmos, everything has a purpose. Everything is designed to keep us moving forward. And this would have been an important check-in point for your future and what you're really committed to for the long term. So now let's move on to Chiron, the asteroid in the asteroid belt between Saturn and Uranus. Chiron has been in Aries throughout 2022, where it started the year at 8 degrees of Aries and moved to 16 degrees of Aries in your chart, stationing retrograde in July 20th, and then moving back to nearly 12 degrees of Aries by the end of December 2022. So Chiron in Aries covered 8 degrees to 16 degrees in your chart and was helping you understand more of what you're deeply healing. Chiron is where we have wounds, soul wounds that have traveled with us across lifetimes. Chiron is where we have insecurities, vulnerabilities, fears show up, and things that really pull us into our emotional self. Now, it's important to know that Chiron was actually wounded twice. It has 2 wounds associated with it. The first wound is emotional, and the second is physical. And this could be interesting to make some connections here between your emotional self and your physical self, between your emotional consciousness and your body consciousness, and the interplay of what is being healed, and how maybe there is one area where the wound begins and then you feel it in the other area. So for example, you feel it as a physical wound first, and then it shows up and relates to some kind of emotional wound. So this would be something to look at in yourself, because Chiron in Aries is deeply supporting us in knowing our truth, really knowing more of who we are in this lifetime. But in order to do that, we have to move through anything that could potentially hold us back. And it would hold us back in our own unconscious or subconscious. So this Chiron in Aries is showing us where we're ready to apply more love to ourselves, more compassion, give ourselves some time and space to do some deeper inner work. And if you have planets or points in Aries, especially between 8 and 16 degrees, this has been required of you. Now, Chiron takes about 49 years to move through the full zodiac. So it hasn't been in Aries for 49 years. And it's bringing up parts of our self-identities that we're meant to look at. We're meant to understand, is this really who I am? Or have some of these energies maybe become disconnected from your truth or from your self-identity now? Sometimes that Aries energy can be so caught up in the moment or so connected to the ego or to the sense of self that it loses track of a bigger picture. It doesn't step back and look at things objectively. It also doesn't see things from another angle. The Aries energy can be very wrapped up in itself. This would be a lower expression of Aries. And so here comes Chiron that's meant to dismantle parts of ourselves that aren't really truth, that aren't the truth of our frequency, that aren't really what we're about or what we identify with now in terms of our sense of self. So this Chiron energy will dismantle, it will take things apart, it will remove, and all of that can feel harsh, it can feel difficult, and it can hurt. And it's meant to show you through this journey in Aries the truth of who you are based on the healed versions of yourself. And so this is where the Chiron in Aries can be showing you where you react from a wound, or where you're triggered by something that relates to your wounding in this lifetime or across other lifetimes. So look in your chart at where you have 8 to 16 degrees of Aries, as this Chiron has been highlighting for you things in yourself that are ready to evolve. But the evolution occurs through the healing process, and the healing process cannot be rushed. It can't go any faster than it does, and that can be difficult for Aries, which is a fast-moving sign. It wants to get going, wants to get started, and wants things to be done that are uncomfortable. So there's a gentleness that's been required with the Chiron and Aries transits, as we learn to be more easeful with ourselves, more graceful, more accepting, more allowing, to not allow things to take over what we thought was possible. Meaning, because that Aries energy wants to go, 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 it could feel like you're disconnected from something that you really want, or you're disconnected from a part of yourself that you always thought was very strong and in control. Here comes Chiron doing some very deep reprogramming. Chiron reprograms our frequencies. It softens us. We become more self-accepting and more compassionate. We become more aware of what we maybe don't do perfectly, and that's okay. We become more aware of our healing work. Chiron in Aries has also been connecting us to the trauma, abuse, or very deep wounds that we've held that maybe we haven't looked at all in this lifetime. And it requires us to go into our own energy to really take responsibility for a healing process. So know that this Chiron energy is ultimately designed to support us and move us forward. Now, because Chiron ends the year at nearly 12 degrees of Aries, it is going to travel across the 12 to 16 degrees again in your chart in 2023. But Chiron is done between 8 and 12 degrees. So if you have planets or points between 8 and 12 degrees of Aries, or of the fire signs are Aries, Leo, Sag, then this Chiron is complete with reprogramming those parts of your chart. Again, between 8 and 12 degrees, Chiron is done with the reprogramming. This is also good news if you have any planets or points in the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. This Chiron in Aries has been working with you if you have planets or points between that 8 and 16 degrees. And this Chiron could have felt like something very personal was occurring. It could have brought up your insecurities. It could have been a lot of tears, a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of things that just suck and like pull you down into your own emotional process, which is actually an invitation to go into your own healing journey. So if you can see this Chiron as an invitation to heal, that alone can help you move through some of these energies and also see the beauty in them on the other side. Because Chiron, the centaur, was known for his wisdom, especially around medicine, healing, organics, the natural world. And this Chiron connects to alternative healing methods, alternative paths. So stepping outside of mainstream, stepping outside of typical advice or typical ways of handling something. Chiron is your invitation to explore more options, more ways of healing, more ways of going about something that is really supportive of you and connects you to more of your natural energy frequency. I have been going to acupuncture for years. Acupuncture does wonders for my energy, my frequency, all parts of me. I'm a huge proponent of acupuncture, and it's a very Chiron energy, especially as it relates directly to healing the body, working with the energy meridians, and understanding how we can heal ourselves based on some of these more naturopathic remedies. So that's just one example of how Chiron energies work, is that they take you off of what you expected. Because Chiron is where, again, you have to take an alternative path. And this is also where you could even feel rejection, alienation, abandonment, because Chiron is basically grabbing you and taking you off of what you thought you would be doing or you should be doing and showing you another way, showing you other ways to tap into your energy and to honor what you need. So keep in mind that even though the Chiron energies can be very emotional and even trying at times, they're connecting you to more of your natural frequency while also inviting you to be kinder to yourself. Give yourself a break. Let yourself off the hook. Don't apply too many expectations to this part of your life, this part of your chart, because that Chiron in Aries is moving through a whole new experience of understanding your own energy. And this would have been very significant for you if you have planets or points in Aries, and it would have been even more difficult for planets or points in the cardinal signs, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So now we're going to see Chiron move forward, where in the next year it will travel further into Aries and get to nearly 20 degrees of Aries in 2023. So it might be helpful to look back at what this Chiron energy has been revealing to you, healing for you, what you have come to understand about the Aries energies in your chart, what you've come to understand about what you need and who you are now. And also, as Chiron moves forward and doesn't return to these same degree points, you start to feel stronger. You start to feel healed. You start to feel like, okay, I can see what that was about or what that process was. Even though it was difficult in the moment and emotional, I understand now what I was meant to see and tap into. And I feel like this hindsight exercise is a great way to see how the planetary energies were alive for you in 2022. What you were learning, what you were moving through, what came up for you as these planets interacted with more of your natal planets, and perhaps even really showed you more of what you're ready to begin, since we did have this Aries energy in play, and it will be strong as we move into the new year as well. If you're in my 2022 Soul Growth Astrology program, definitely log back into that, review the transits of the year, look at what showed up for you, what transpired, what the themes were. Look at how the astrology played out for you. And then take a look at the 2023 Soul Growth Astrology program and look at what's on the road ahead, what's coming up in the new year, how the energies are very big, very significant, but you're going to start to make some connections around your own chart, your own energy, and how astrology is very relevant in our lives. It is a consciousness system. It is an energy system that we tune into, and we start to see how beautifully connected we are to the cosmos. We are made of stars. We are made of multiple energies. And astrology is a beautiful way to navigate this human journey, because we're tapping into that level of consciousness that also honors our power, our choices, our light, and what we want to do next and what we want to co-create with the universe. So please enjoy this in terms of looking back on what has transpired for you this year. And next Monday, I will be back to discuss the transiting energies of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those are the outer planets, and they often bring about the biggest life transformations and changes. So we'll look at that on December 19th. I'll be back on Wednesday as we look at the weekly energies every Wednesday. And be sure and check out all of my latest offerings over at mollymccord.online. And you can also find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and now on TikTok, where I just joined TikTok. So, wishing you a beautiful week ahead. Thank you so much for joining me here. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you next week. Take good care, and I'll see you soon.